Okay, I've moved one more time. Now I'm actually in my office here on the Valencia campus, and we're going to just continue on with the lecture where we are. Somebody might come to my door. That's my office door back there. So somebody might come, in which case I'll just have to pause this, and then we'll deal with it then. But in any case, I'm going to assume nobody ever comes to office hours here. So we were talking about, when I see me look over there, it's because my notes are over here. We were talking about the Electoral College, and we're talking about the fact that if no candidate wins a majority in the Electoral College, then what winds up happening is the House of Representatives chooses the president. And the way it works is that each state gets one vote. Each state gets a single vote. And so, in our House of Representatives, if that happened, each state would have to vote. And there's no real... They don't explain in the Constitution how each state comes up with their one vote. It's unclear whether they do majority rule or they arm wrestle or they fight to the death, whatever, but each state gets one vote. Now, there are a couple problems with the original version. Well, so first, let's talk about the main problem. Again, as I said before, when I was going ahead and talking about the original version, I said that the candidate with the most votes, as long as they have a majority, the candidate with the most votes and a majority winds up becoming president of the United States. Okay? The person with the second most votes winds up becoming vice president. Now, in 2012, or 2008, if we had those same rules, in 2008, what would have happened? We'd have President Obama. He had the most electoral votes, and he went ahead and he had a majority. And we would have Vice President McCain. So we would have a Democratic president and a Republican vice president. Two people who completely disagree with one another. Think about what would have happened in the year 2000. Right? That was the election where George Bush won the electoral vote, but got fewer votes than Al Gore. Right? In a case like that, what you'd have is the president, if we stuck to the original version, the president would be President Bush. The vice president would have been Al Gore, the guy who got the most votes. So from the very beginning, the framers realized, you know what, this thing isn't going to happen. This isn't going to work too well. And so eventually that was changed. And now when we vote for presidents, we vote for presidents and vice presidents together. Now the next thing I want to talk about is, and this is a little bit more complicated, why it is that the smaller states, and again, when I mean small states, I'm not talking about size, I'm talking about the less populous states, why it was that the smaller states were totally cool with this whole process of selecting a president. And to explain why, I provided a link on the lecture notes to the original 13 colonies. Go find a map of the original 13 colonies. There are a few of them on the internet, so just go ahead and find one. And just pause this right now. Pause it, go find the original, a map of the original 13 colonies, and then come back and we'll continue on. So go ahead and pause me now. Okay, so you're back. If you go ahead and you take a look at the 13 colonies, what you can see is, if you think back to what things were like in the late 1700s, Georgia, right, is really far away from Massachusetts during that time. There are no phones, there's no internet, there are no railroads to take you up and down the coast. There's none of that. I mean, it's a very primitive society, and so the people who live down in the southern area, Georgia, the North, South Carolina, mostly knew politicians in their region. And then the people in the middle colonies probably knew more about the politicians in that area. The people in the North knew mostly politicians in that area. So here's what the framers are thinking. They're thinking, when electors get selected, when somebody gets elected to be an elector, to go ahead and select the President of the United States, these electors, what's going to happen is they're going to want to vote for people they know. So probably the way it's going to work out, the small states are thinking, is people in the South are going to vote for someone in the southern regions. People in the middle colonies are going to vote for people in the middle regions. people at the very north part of the colonies are going to vote for, or the states now, are going to vote for politicians up there. The key being that no one is going to get a majority. No presidential candidate is ever going to get a majority other than George Washington. Everybody knew George Washington was going to be the first president. They're figuring nobody's ever going to get a majority, and so what's going to happen? If nobody gets a majority, then the decision is made in the House of Representatives. And so in the House of Representatives, it's one state, one vote. So the small states are going to have as big an impact on the decision about who's going to be president as the large states. So they're thinking, we totally like this part of the Constitution. We really like this. And so they were in favor of this. Now, it turns out that the small states were wrong in thinking that no one was ever going to get a majority. As a matter of fact, it's only happened on 2 occasions that the House of Representatives has decided who selected the president, right? And so it doesn't happen very often. It certainly hasn't happened in modern times. And that's because something developed that the small states didn't plan on. And that was political parties. That political parties eventually developed. But we'll be talking about that later. Now, the last part of the Constitution I want to talk about is the process by which a president is removed from office. Now, people frequently get this part of the Constitution wrong. They just get it wrong because they just don't understand it. They've heard words and don't really know what they mean. So first, let me just start off by saying when somebody is impeached, when a president is impeached, that does not mean that the president is removed from office. They're not. President Clinton was impeached, but he served his entire term. Removing somebody from office, removing a president from office, is a 2-step process. The first step takes place in the House of Representatives. The second step takes place in the Senate. So here's the first step. If the House of Representatives believes that a president, and this is true for a judge as well, should be impeached, they feel that he has done something worthy of him being removed from office, then they hold an impeachment hearing. And essentially what they're trying to do is determine whether there's enough evidence to warrant holding a trial, right? If somebody's impeached, that doesn't mean that the House of Representatives is removing somebody from office. What it means is the House of Representatives has determined that there is a sufficient amount of evidence to go ahead and hold a trial. That's what it means, and all it takes is a simple majority. If 50% plus one, 50% plus 1 of the members of the House of Representatives go ahead and vote to remove a president from office, then he or she eventually is impeached. Does that mean they're removed from office? No, because step 2 in the process takes place in the Senate. In the Senate, what happens is the members of the House who believe that the president should be removed from office, they come there and they present their evidence to the senators about why they think a president should be removed from office. The senators basically act like a jury. They're just going to sit there and they're going to listen, kind of like are they going to vote to convict or not convict. That's what they're going to do. So they go ahead and listen to the evidence and they decide whether they're going to vote yes or no. So the people from the House who thought the president should be removed present the evidence for why the president should be removed. Then the president has people come and present evidence for why he thinks he shouldn't be removed. And then the Senate, after all the evidence has been presented, then the Senate goes ahead and they vote. To remove a president from office requires a 2/3 vote. If you look on your lecture notes, I refer to it as a supermajority. It takes a supermajority to go ahead and remove a president from office. Right? So somebody can be impeached. President Clinton was impeached. Andrew Johnson, way back, was impeached. Neither one of them were removed from office. Okay? So that's important to keep that in mind. So removing somebody from office is a 2-step process. Impeachment, that happens in the House of Representatives, and all it takes is a simple majority, 50% plus 1. And then also, if that happens, then a vote in the Senate, but there it's got to be a 2/3 majority. Now, every once in a while in class, someone will ask, was President Nixon removed from office? No, he wasn't. President Nixon knew that he would, if there had been a trial, he would have been convicted. So before they even impeached him, and he would have been impeached, and he would have been convicted, he went ahead and resigned. So had he tried to stay in office, he probably would have been the first president to be removed from office. But that has never happened. That hasn't happened thus far. Okay? So now we're going to continue on the next one with the judicial branch and then the myth of the 3/5 compromise.